Well, we want to welcome everybody back again to America's Elite Businesses Up Close and Personal. I'm your host, Chris Jones, and of course, week one at Surf's Up Computing, well, we got through it, so by popular demand, week two is here. And again, we have the owner, Chris, with us, and we have Joe, who is his store manager. Chris, thank you for allowing us to come in again.
You're welcome. Good
Joe,
to see you again, Chris.
You too, and Joe, we look forward to talking to you today. And we want to, of course, remind all our Titan podcast listeners that we do this each and every week here at Surf's Up Computing, and you can check us out on our website, TitanMediaEntertainment.com. Chris, you gave me some things to talk about, and of course, you know, my computer skills are very limited, so I don't really have just a little bit limited here. But introduce our podcast listeners and viewers here today on what we're talking about.
Well, we're going to talk about sort of what you see behind us here, and you're probably wondering why we have such crazy colors and different things like that.
I've come to know you. I understand why.
Okay. Well, what we're going to talk about is our custom-built computers, and not only do we customize them, we personalize them.
Well, that's again, I know how to work a computer. I'm in the beginning stages and all that, but explain custom. Explain that. Is that basically because they got their initials on it, or is it built more around what their work schedule desires?
Actually, a little of everything.
Okay, explain that,
Yeah.
please.
Well, the thing is, our computers, you can also express yourself artistically in addition to getting exactly what you want and what you need for your services.
You need to explain that further here. Artistically?
Yeah,
Okay.
Artistically means that you can pick the color of the case you want. You can design a logo, your favorite graphic, anything like that. We'll etch that in on the side of it,
Okay.
and we can also light it up.
That's kind of like my golf bag. I had my Titan Media Entertainment etched in, but I can't do anything but hold clubs with my golf bag. Can you?
You can do a whole lot more with this.
Okay, so this will give me more options as
Yes.
opposed to a golf bag.
Correct.
Let's talk a little bit about at what point when you're creating this, I mean, what are the steps?
Well, first of all, we're going to ask you a lot of questions, not to put you on the spot, but to find out how you're going to use the computer. So we're going to ask you, are you doing graphics? Are you doing design work? Are you using like a CAD drawing program? Are you using it just to get on the internet and maybe social media, or just doing basic office stuff? Because that's going to, just asking a few questions like that kind of tells us how you're going to use the computer and what we need to put in it.
Well, I would think that kind of drives any sort of computer purchase. I mean, you can go to these small commercialized computer stores and get one and then you're up on the internet, but the more intricate you get, places like yourself and the custom designs, that becomes very important here. Joe, we want to talk about Joe here very quick. He's the store manager. So I learned on the way in today that we need to kind of elevate the way we approach him. So Joe, I've already saluted you. I'm not going to do the mister, but we're real thankful to have you on today, week two here at Surf's Up Computing here. Let's talk a little bit about your day-to-day duties, and then you have a great story which we'd like to follow with, but tell me what you do on a day-to-day basis here as the store manager.
Day-to-day basis usually involves me, you know, we get laptops in, you know, we refurbish them, I take them apart, I usually replace the thermal paste, you know, make sure, you know, test all the functionality, and then install Windows on every single one. Usually, like right now, I think I got 12 to work on, and usually I do that. I do research, component research for customers. They call in and, you know, they want a custom built computer, so I, you know, ask them, you know, what kind of stuff they're going to be doing with it, and then what their budget is, and then I basically just build the best computer for that particular task with that budget.
Let's talk, Joe, and that's interesting because I know this has become a more specialized world. Computers are built for people. Computers are built for programs, and you know, me and you have had a small joint venture, and it took two people to finally find the right guy to get what I needed from the work that you had given me. So, which was great, and I thank you for your help on my project here. But Joe, I want to go back to your original story, and it's a heartfelt story. If you don't mind sharing how you and Chris met, where you were, and where you are today.
Let's see. Came down here about 2.5 years ago in February. $200 in my pocket. Didn't know anybody, so I was, living in a tent. I had a job for, Popeyes, but I left because the working conditions were not, up to my standards. They were very, very low, and I knew that I could get something better. So, I traveled to walk to Port Orange. I had, started staying at this church there, Covenant United Methodist in Port Orange. And, I started staying there, and then one morning, I think it was a Tuesday morning, at about 6 o'clock, two old gentlemen came out, and they invited me in for breakfast, and I was really really surprised. I know he was walking up when I was sleeping, and he was like, "Oh, don't let me disturb you, but you want to come in for breakfast." I'm like, "Yeah, that's awesome." And I went in there, and they prayed for me, and then that's where I met Chris, and he gave me his number. I gave him my number, and it was like 2 days later he called me and asked me if I wanted to come work with him. And was painting that house in Deltona. Yeah, that was a fun experience. And
He's trying to get me to do some painting as well. I think there's a pattern.
Yeah, I think one of the very first tech job I went on, it was installing security cameras around a house, crawling in an attic, running Ethernet cables and power cables, and trying to figure out the best place to plug the stuff in and somehow get the signal from the camera from one side of the house all the way to the other side without running this Ethernet cable all the way through. And that was a job. It was really fun. So then business started picking up, and I started working more and more and more, and eventually he hired me on, and we outgrew his office at home, so we got this place here, and the rest is history.
Well, that's great. That's a powerful divine intervention story here. And Chris, for you to be able to see and discern this young man had the skills, how much work did you have to put into him to kind of get him up to speed? Because you're kind of a wily veteran here. I mean, the things, especially week one, that you do on a daily basis, and the thoughts and products that you're trying to put in circulation are outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
Is Joe up to speed, or are we still working on him?
Actually, he does a great job learning a lot of things on his own. I always see him doing research when he has downtime. He's always looking at YouTube videos and trying to research to find out what the latest stuff is. He could probably tell you which chip is the best one to use, what percentage faster it is, and if it's cost effective to go with that chip. Just off the top of his head now.
I'm a chocolate chip guy.
Well, you know what? Those would overheat in our computers and melt all over, so they're kind of messy.
So we're on a different chip here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, these are computer chips.
Okay,
You
well-
can't eat them, but you can use them.
Is that like Lay's chips?
No.
Okay. Well, we're clearing this
Yeah.
up here. I'm off subject here. Joe's story was great here. Chris, I am definitely curious on the custom stuff. I mean, the whole world and every business has custom shoes, custom clothes. Everything is custom fit for that person, which is great. And that's exactly what you want to do. You want to be able to discern what their needs are and make sure it's an absolutely perfect fit so they're comfortable. That's kind of what you do. You qualify them up front. And do you try in the process to show them other things, get them out of their comfort level a little bit, but that allows them to grow with your product and their business?
Yes, and what we do is, in fact, any of the businesses that we work with, we get to try and know them personally.
Okay.
That's our whole goal, is to know them personally, find out how they operate, and from that, we can learn how to give them the best products possible. Because we don't want to go and sell them or oversell them on something, or
Right.
undersell them based on their needs. So if we know how the whole operations work and all that, we can tailor everything in that business to exactly what they need and stay cost effective for them.
You talk about in businesses. I'm a business owner myself too, and I remember my old football days. Believe it or not, our game plan was based on quarters. First quarter, here's our game plan. Second quarter, here's our game plan. Because each quarter there were different difficulties, and so we had to prepare for those here. And I think business owners have to prepare for that as well too. We're in a second or maybe an upcoming third quarter. The world's changed a lot here. We're just learning to do our world differently here. What's the game plan here for the next coming weeks and months, Chris?
Well, our game plan right now, with the virus and a lot of people down, we changed our focus from the custom built and upper end computers to budget type laptops
Right.
that people can use from home. So right now, we're actually offering laptops for $195 and up.
Okay, you want to talk a little bit about the laptops and how accessible they are?
Well, what we do is, we work with our vendors and all that. We look for usually, we buy them in lots,
Okay.
anywhere from 5 to 20 computers at a time. And what we'll do is we'll look for really good deals, and we also try and keep in mind what we want our final price to be on this. So we'll look at items that are of good quality, but yet, how much we need to put into it to take it up one more notch, to make it sellable and something that a customer can use for another 4 to 5 years.
Well, that's great here, and I think right now, everybody's looking for something that they can be used, especially with such an at-home presence right now, schools and workers, and we live in a different world right now, and you guys have all the tools that people need to reach out. It's a viral world. Titan Media Entertainment, we're in 23 states right now doing campaign podcasts because the big crowds no longer exist. Podcasts are the way to communicate to the outside public here. Joe, I want to go back to you real quick here. I see you got a little boo-boo on that left arm, and I understand Chris is a little tough guy to work with. Was it a physical altercation, or can we talk about it on camera?
Well, actually,
Tell me the truth.
My last day off.
As long as it's clean.
My last day off was actually laying in bed all day with my laptop on my lap, and had my wrist kind of cranked at a weird angle, and I was basically spent 2 days like that. And got up, and my wrist I couldn't move it.
Well, being a former football player in a game that's so physical, that's a pretty pathetic story, but I'm gonna accept it.
It is.
That's pretty pathetic here, but you know what? We're not here to judge you. We're here to get to learn you guys here. We're at Surf's Up Commuting, Computing. We're on Ridgewood, and we're here with the owner, Chris. Week 2, we're gonna try to be here as much as he'll allow us. We have Joe, the store manager, here today. We got a couple more minutes here. Chris, I want just talk a little bit more about what you're doing on a daily basis. I love the idea of custom computers, but you mentioned something else before we came in. I guess custom computers and just computers in general. What sets you apart? In every product, in every community, in every county, in every state, there's always numerous businesses. What do you try to do to set yourself apart from everybody else?
The thing that really makes us stand out for our customers is the personalized service that you get.
Kind of like that guy that calls you 20 times a night?
Yeah.
That's terrible. I'm just kidding, boy.
But that's the thing, we get to know our customers real well, because we want them to come back and not only do service with us, but get to know us for what we are and all that, and in the meantime, they're getting a good product and great service.
You know, and I firmly believe in that. I'm old school, and I still believe that people buy from people. Products are similar, of course, technology and the people behind it really set the market, but people still buy from people, and I think that's going to always be, and that's a great opportunity for people to get to know you. And Chris is a great guy too. His product is good, his store is first class, but I do enjoy all our time. I've met Joe today intimately for the first time. I get Jesse every day. You can see why I have these hives. But I want to go a little further into your store now. I hear you're in the next couple of days looking for, you're outgrowing your location here, so we're looking for expansion. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Well, right now, we're into the looking phase and all that, because the building is getting kind of tight here.
Right.
And even though we've only been here just a little over a year, growth is really taking off. We're offering new products, we're making new partnerships with other people.
Right.
As in last week's episode, we were talking about our new item out there and our partnership with Doug and Mary.
Right.
So as we're bringing in new products and looking for future technology out there, we're gonna need a larger location.
And I think that's exactly right. And unfortunately, our society is in a different place. But fortunately, people like you are needed. Computer access right now in a viral world is needed. Titan Media Entertainment, our podcasts are needed because people can no longer communicate in social distance. And so, unfortunately, our world is different, but it allows us to step up. And that's great for businesses like myself and for you. Anything else you want to add, Chris? I mean, we're going to be here weekly, and this is Surf's Up Computing. I was corrected earlier. As Joe was corrected, I don't believe his story. I think there was a physical altercation in here. I'm just kidding here. Let's talk, if we can, some parting comments here. We talked today about custom computers, and that's great. Like we said, custom shoes, custom shirts, the whole world wants things that are done custom. You've switched gears and you're trying to simplify things for the world because your product is so needed right now as well too. Do you have a kind of a middle area that can really define your store?
Well, the other thing is, we're always looking to the future. We want to be the leader in technology.
There you go. That's what I wanted to hear. Let's talk a little bit about that. Is that a study process? Is that a brainstorming? Is it a troubleshooting? How do you
Well,
actually define that?
Well, actually, we do a lot of research. We try to find out what the coming trends are and all that, and we
Okay.
want to be the trendsetter, not the followers. in
You're
this
going to create your own path.
Pretty much.
Well, and that's why we're here. We're trying to get
Yeah.
Chris and Joe and our message out to all our podcast listeners and viewers here. That's the first step, to refine your skills and everything you do in here. And that's my responsibility here to get this out here too. Well, that's great. We talked about custom computers today. We got to meet Joe, the store manager. What a great story, Joe. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for reaching out to the community and bringing in products that they can afford and use. But the ultimate thing, customer service, even the guy that calls 20 times in the middle of the night, that's just a part of it as well too. But to know that you're continually trying to refine your skills and talents. I mean, everybody wants to be a trendsetter. I mean, even no matter what we do, we want to be ahead of the curve. So with your computers, you can not only teach it, but you have the equipment to do it.
Yes. We, let's see.
Let's talk a little bit here before we part out here about
Yeah.
some of the equipment that you can shout out to our podcast listeners and viewers, so they can kind of start meditating on what they need to get as they come into your store.
Yeah, so, let's see, if we're talking about the custom-built computers
Yes.
themselves.
Yes.
We try to keep some of the parts on hand and all that, the ones that are used pretty much in any type of build.
Okay.
We have kind of our set standards and all that, and then if someone needs something really unique, we have many suppliers that we work with that we're able to pretty much nitpick and choose exactly what the customer needs. So, and what we can do, if we have time, is we could also kind of take apart one of these cases here and kind of go through the steps of what we would do to customize a computer for a customer.
Well, we may have to, I think we're a little short on time on a podcast today, but I would love to do that. I mean, it would be a learning process for me, but you're talking about the building of a custom computer based on the needs of the customer, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Well, I think that would be a great topic for week 3 here with Chris and with Joe. If you're good with that, then
Yeah.
we'll kind of give a shout out. Tune in next week. We're at Surfs Up.
Computing, not commuting, computing.
Well, I commuted here.
Right.
I did commute today. I mean, 5 times I commuted. We've got Joe. Thank you for your story, Joe. Chris, the owner, and of course, Jesse behind the camera. Tune in next week. We're going to break down one of these computers, one of these custom computers, and that's a great concept too. You guys can, if you have some questions, you can hit us up on our website. Chris, your website, or how can these people, I know everybody wants to be a trendsetter, how can they contact you to be that trendsetter and what they're looking for?
Well, they can surf the net. That's why we're Surfs Up
Oh my
Computing.
goodness, I've heard that name a lot
Yeah,
today.
isn't
Okay,
that
great.
cool?
It's different.
Yeah, and by doing that, they can go to www.surfsupcomputing.com, and they can find us there, or they can go to facebook.com/surfsupcomputing and find our Facebook page.
Well, before we check out here, me and Joe are the only ones without the name tags again. Last week it was me. Off the air, I had to beg. So next week, Joe, hopefully we'll have some name tags as well too, so we can fit in. But we want to thank everybody for joining us again. Week 2 at Surfs Up
Computing.
We thank Joe. We thank Chris. Next week we're going to dissect the computer. Be a trendsetter. We'll see you guys next week.